My voice tone gives a different message. So, yeah, voice tone makes a big difference on these, doesn't it? Each of us has our line beyond which you do not cross in terms of presupposing more. And it would violate our sense of choice, freedom, integrity, whatever. And it's so important as we learn language patterns to be sensitive to that. And it's going to be different for each person. With some people, it would be violating our relationship if I didn't presuppose a lot, because they want it. They find it supportive. They want that in there to add support for the direction they want their experience to go. For someone else, be very careful about presupposing more than they are ready for at that moment in time. So it's finding that place where what kinds of things and how we presuppose them are fully supportive to the other person, not only what they want, but how they want to get there. So you want to understand language patterns even more fully, don't you? Yes. And now that's different than you want to understand language patterns more fully, even more fully, don't you? And we see, you watch, you know, you see a totally different state, and you're getting it. That's exactly what this is about.
One of them, you're inviting the person to go along with your certainty, and the other one, you're inviting them to go along with your doubt.
Yes, yes, I think that's a nice way of putting it. That fit for you? We got an aha over here. Thank you. Yes. And of course, that's ultimately what language patterns are all about, is noticing what works for each of us. Now let's go to the past forms. So that was a terrible problem, wasn't it? So that was a limitation, wasn't it? Now notice what happens. If I just say, that was really difficult, how's that different from, that was really difficult, wasn't it? You get a sense of how it's different for you? And
Well, it emphasizes the past.
it emphasizes that it's done. And at the same time, all we're doing is pacing, right? Isn't it? Isn't it? So, yeah, it emphasizes, it gives more closure to placing it in the completed past. It's done. Then, of course, we can get fancy if we want to and combine these two and go, that is a terrible problem, wasn't it? Now, that's a little too clever for most of us. There's sometimes this, well, we won't go into that. And yet it's an interesting thing to know about, because often over several sentences in our interaction with someone, that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to be moving someone from experiencing a limitation as now into the past, into the completed past. So that is a terrible problem, wasn't it? Becomes what we may do over several sentences, usually. Usually that's too fast for someone to process fully all in one. Yet there are many times when in the middle of a sentence I will change verb forms exactly that way. I'll move an experience of something from being in the present to in the past. That has been a problem, hadn't it? See, that's a little bit more gradual. That has been a problem, hadn't it? There we move from present perfect to past perfect. You experience the idea. Because whether or not you ever remember the labels for these things, it really doesn't matter. As long as you are tracking the experience within your being, then all you need to do when you want to invite someone else to have that experience is you have it, say the words that fit, and it will come out that way. Does that make sense as a strategy?
Had not it is definitely, that's Eric Sodium double talk. It really jumbles my brain.
Yeah, and there's some, hadn't it, hadn't you, hadn't it, had not it. Yeah, he did use these tag questions, didn't he? And there's also something, when we were first taught tag questions, and when you got into practitioner training, you probably, Richard Bandler said, well, tag questions have to do with engaging and pacing a polarity at the same time as you pace the conscious desire and goal. And I don't know, that part I take on faith. I don't quite have a physical experience of that when I do that for myself. But I do have the physical experience of it completing something. So if I go, that was a problem, wasn't it? really complete. It emphasizes to my unconscious that that's over without ever saying anything about it. You never have to put into words that, you don't have to put into words to get that message across. Oh, that's over now, isn't it? Because the tag question does that. Anything else on that? Okay. So, now what I'd like to do is play around a little bit with, here's some here's some just language sequences that are straight from Richard Bandler that I would like to just read to you and invite you to process and notice what happens so that you have a sense. Because once we sensitize ourselves to what happens with these different verb forms, then we can start thinking of how do we want to move our experience through time? How is that useful? What can we do with this toy now that we have it? So here are some samples, and then we're going to do an exercise to play around with it, just experiment. To do this, what I'd like you to do is think of some simple limitation and something where you already have a sense of what resource will make a difference for you, or what the solution is, one of those. Okay? So you have limit, solution, and then just use that and let your unconscious go to town with this and notice what happens. So you might want to close your eyes, keep them open, however you like. What would it be like when you have made those changes now in the future, as you look back and see what it was like to have had that problem when you think about it now? So, and I'll read that one more time, because you may not have it word for word. What would it be like when you have made those changes now in the future, as you look back and see what it was like to have had that problem, as you think about it now? Okay, is that interesting? Now, again, this is too fast for many people. You have got a problem? Just close your eyes, let me read you through this, and we'll have it handled 2 seconds. 3 seconds max. So, shall we go through it phrase by phrase and get a sense of what's happening? And what I'll do is I'll report to you what seems to happen for most people, and you will find some difference from this for yourself, probably. And for some people say, oh, well, I was with you until there, and then I just couldn't follow, I couldn't track. Sometimes if you miss a certain link, it's like, well, I don't know what to do with the rest of the sentence now. So if this were done individually, you would, of course, make sure the person moved to the first piece before you go to the second piece, and accomplish the second piece before you move to the third piece. Just like steps in a procedure. Just like that. Okay, so what would it be like? Now, what does the word would do? It's future and it's hypothetical. I'm not saying what will it be like. Do you hear the difference? Is that real familiar to you? Have you gone over the difference between would and will? Very, very crucial difference. Because it's very easy for people to undo work with words like would. Would is something that pops stuff off the timeline. What would it be like? What will it be like places it on the timeline in the future. What would it be like brings it up for consideration, but it's not on the timeline yet. Okay, so now what he's doing with this is what would it be like lets you introduce a possibility as hypothetical, and it gets around someone rejecting it because it won't ever happen. So rather than somebody going, well, that's not possible, you go, the word would says, we both know this may not be possible, but think about it anyway. So what would it be like when you have made those changes? Suddenly it's on the timeline. So what would it be like, when you get the image formed, oh, I know what it would be like, when you have made those changes, and suddenly you've stepped out of the present, you're in the future, into the resource state, right? Associated into the resource state. When you have made those changes, as you look back and see what it was like, this language is in your notes, by the way. You've got this word for word. When you look back and see what it was like to have had that problem. So, with respect to where I am now, in the future, in the resource, I look back into my past with respect to the future, completed past, and see that, oh yeah, a long time ago I had a problem, didn't I? And and you see it dissociated. So the problem state is now dissociated. It's something I'm watching from the outside. The resource state is something I'm associated into now. Okay? See what it was like to have had that problem. When you think about it now, and what that tends to do is collapse the whole thing back, collapse the solution back into the present now, and the problem into the completed past. Does that make sense? Okay. And that one sentence, in a way, is a summary of what we go for in therapy, or in change work, in personal growth, in business consultation, in any kind of change process. It's a summary of what we go for. We start off with, here I am. I'm associated into a problem, and I have it, and I experience it as through time. And then we begin to bring up a dissociated experience of the desired state. Here's how things will be, and I can see that now, even though I'm not there yet. We begin to get a representation of what life will be like when it's solved. Then we step out of the problem state, we associate into the resource state. So now I'm in the resource state. We are dissociated from the problem state. We can look back on it. And the act of looking back on it helps prevent a relapse. Because what it does is make sure that the problem is recoded as past, dissociated. So that if someone asks me a question about it, I don't have to associate into it to answer the question. I have a new way of perceiving and thinking about it, namely dissociated. Does that all make sense? Okay, yeah. What I'd like to do, since you've got this one in your notes, is to go on to another one that's a little bit different, okay, and also interesting. So you can take the same content, if you want, and run this one through. If you could make this change for yourself so that you could stop having already made that change and see yourself now, do you like the way you look?